Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Red Victorian for a teacher lesson with Wayne Lynch, who has never been to the Red Victorian. Yay!
Wow.
So I'm going to say a few words about the Red Vic. So what is this place, right? First, this is our home. We are 15 residents who live here permanently. You can see some of them in the background. I saw Dave, there was Toby and Caddy before, and me, Nina. Hi. So it's a home, but it's also a hotel. So there are some hotel guests there, a hostel as well. And actually it's part of a bigger network of houses that is international, which is called the Embassy Network. So there are houses like this in San Francisco, 2 of them. There's also in Costa Rica, in Amsterdam, in Berlin. There is one in Greece, but I don't remember where. So it's a big, big network. And it's also part of a network in San Francisco, locally, that is called the 8th Street Commons. And in that network, you have like 10, 15 houses, all like that. Some have events, some have not, but it's part of a big thing. And so the Red Vic hosts public events like today. We have different things. Sometimes we have lectures. So next week on Tuesday, we're going to have a lecture on nuclear power. And today we have a DJ class. And we are very happy.
Less impactful in the world.
With Andrea Icardi, also known by Wayne Lynch. And thank you very much for giving that lecture today.
Thank you for holding it. Thank you. So before we start, I wanted to say thank you to all that donated already, and if you haven't, please do. I do this for a hobby, both teaching and playing. I think music is art and should be shared. Unfortunately, there's some people that cannot enjoy what we are going to do today, people that have problems with hearing. And so since we started, me and some friends, a musical project in San Francisco called the Muir Circle, we decided that we would donate everything that we make from our events, from our fundraisers, and from our classes to the Hearing Health Foundation, which is a foundation based in New York. I think they're doing great work, and what's especially good about them is that they donate back to medical research 95% of everything that they get in. So they're a very lean organization that just has a lot of very important researchers on their board, and they just try to find solutions for people that can't hear so that they can hear again. And I think it's important to remember that we're very lucky because, in my opinion, music is the best form of art, of course, because I'm doing this. And I just want to remind myself and everybody that I come in contact with how lucky we are that we can experience this. So if you have donated already, thank you so much. If you haven't, please, if you can Venmo. So the Red Victorian Venmo was shut down. So I'm going to use mine for the first time. I swear to God, everything will go through, and I'll post the donation tomorrow, the wire transfer that I will make. If you can donate, my Venmo is at Andrea Icardi. I'll also post it on the event page. Feel free to donate $5 or more. That's what we normally ask. Again, nothing is going to me, nothing is going to Red Vic. It's all going to help research for hearing problems. Hearing problems that range from people that are born deaf to people that lost their hearing due to too much partying, which I think is what's going to happen to me. So it's also an insurance policy that I'm happy to do. It's kind of like, I think it's just for all our futures. So that's just for getting started. Now, I wanted to say some words, but first of all, I wanted to ask, has anyone been to one of these classes before? Yes, thank you. Okay, so very good to see a lot of fresh faces. That's great, because we can then have no limitation into what we're going to explore. I will not have to skip through things. The reason why I started doing these classes, and this is one of many, I taught with my friends more than 100 people in the last couple of years in San Francisco. Some of our students have now become professional DJs that play a lot. You may have heard them already playing in San Francisco clubs. And what we do, we try to bring a demure approach to music, which means music is first and the artist is later. So we don't want to jump into the idea of look at me, I'm DJing, but rather listen to me, this is my message to you. That stems from the fact that we truly believe that music is a way to express emotions, just like language is a way to express ideas. And the closer you can get to translating those emotions that you feel through a medium, that can be a laptop with a controller and some speakers, and your audience, the less intermediation happens between these exchanges, the better the message is going to be. and ultimately, the better the result is going to be for your audience. You're going to create a connection that is very strong. So a parallel that I often make is with cameras. Like we have a beautiful camera here and there set up by Rodrigo. Thank you. So if you think about cameras, the way our parents used cameras, they were analog. You would take 36 photos, and then you would go to a development place. It would take a week, maybe a few days, to develop them, and then you would look at them, and you realize, my focus were always off, or the color didn't really work, and your learning would be slower because the feedback that you would get would be slower, and also the cameras themselves were expensive, and developing film was also expensive. Now let's think about what we live right now is a world of iPhones, where I take a photo with a very accessible camera from my phone, and I can immediately see the result, and I can correct and learn much faster. And I also can access technology that was unthinkable of 20 years ago. And the question is, what is this technology doing to art in general? And this is a very broad question that applies to all forms of art. What is technology doing to art? Is the democratization of art a good thing? And my answer is definitely yes. This is great. Of course, many people will say there's a lot of shit being produced because it's too easy to be a musician, it's too easy to be a photographer. But that shouldn't scare us. That we should really be happy that people that could never access music production or DJing or photography 20 years ago now can very cheaply and very effectively and with very fast feedback loops so they can learn faster. So I'm only in favor of technology helping us disintermediate the medium, which really is technology, between your thought, your emotions, and the representation of that with the audience. And so I think this machine here, and especially this piece of software, which is called Traktor, is a great step forward in that direction. It's a great step forward in democratizing the access to music and making sure that if you have a vision, if you have an emotional journey that you would like to paint for people, this will help you enormously in translating that into reality. And that's all that we're trying to do right now. So I think that's just to say the power that technology has given us, and it's enabling us to do all these things. Now, another important thing to think about is why DJing to begin with? I mean, could we just play guitar or play the drums? I think ultimately a DJ is a figure that has some positive and negatives. Obviously, you're basically playing other people's music. And when you play other people's music, your expression is limited because you have to choose from things that other people have already done. So there is a limit in that representation. However, the advantage is that certainly you can select and pick journeys and melodies and ideas that can fit in creating a journey for your audience. And that makes it really, really powerful. Now, the expression of this journey, in my opinion, can take two forms. You can either be a person that wants to make people dance, and you may want to express that by playing in clubs, and that's totally fine. Most electronic music is consumed in dance floors, and I think it's totally fair and fine if your ambition is to eventually one day play in a club. And I think if you listen to what we do today and you like it, come back to me and we can make you play places. I've been, encouraging and introducing a lot of my students to people that run parties in San Francisco. It's very easy and very accessible. But that's just one way to make this useful. The other way to make this useful is to understand really what happens when you are in a club, when you are on a dance floor, understanding really what's happening behind the decks. Sometimes when you go to a club or to any event really that has somebody curating music, there's a bit of a distance. You look at a person maybe on a stage high up, and you ask yourself, what is that person doing really? Is he just pressing play, like David Guetta? He's just playing and then just doing drugs? Or are they actually creating a journey? Are they actually bringing some art themselves? And I think after the class today, you'll be able to discern that because you will get an ear for what happens. I think all of us, one way or another, we all consume electronic music. And if this class can leave you with anything at all, it's going to leave you a more informed consumer of an art that is very pervasive and it's everywhere in our lives. And I think that is just something that I think is very, very helpful. And a lot of people that take these classes have come back to me and said, look, I'm not going to become a DJ. I don't have the ambition of being in front of a ton of people. I actually would freak out if somebody asked me to do it. But last night I was in this party at Public Works and this DJ made a really beautiful transition, and I felt for the first time that I understood what was happening, what was the message, what was the artistic idea behind the journey that person was painting. And I think that's really, really helpful because it makes you a better consumer, a better listener, and ultimately it brings you closer to the artist, which is the most beautiful thing. So that's just an introduction of, I think, why this is helpful and why, I think educating ourselves with music tools, just like with photography, which is something that I personally am very bad at, but I really like to learn about photography and what are the rules in that field and what is the common messages and way to express these messages, I think can make me a better user, a final user of the art is going to bring me closer to the artist. And I think that's really powerful. So this was just a small intro. Now, the software we're going to use today is called Traktor, and it's by far the industry standard when you're looking at laptop-powered software for DJing. Basically, in the world of electronic music, there exist 3 ways of playing electronic music, playing music in general. One of them is Traktor. I think it's by far the most accessible. The reason is it can live on your laptop, so you can bring it with you wherever you are, and you can practice on your computer. When you're at work and you're bored, instead of going on Facebook, you can actually start making mixes. It's really, really interesting. It's also very cheap and we'll help you get it later. So if you would like, we can help you install it. Please don't tell anyone, but we can find ways to install it for you. So just stick around for later. So it's very, very accessible, very powerful, by far the most sophisticated piece of software in terms of analyzing music and making sure that songs are very well synced, very well read. It gives you a lot of tools to edit them while maintaining everything in sync. So definitely the most powerful tool on the market, very accessible price, industry standard. Now there's 2 other ways that DJs normally play music. One of them is Pioneer CDJs, and these are machines. You may see them in a club. They're just like a box, pretty much this side. They have a spinning wheel, and what they do is basically they try to replicate best they can what Traktor does, but they don't have the horsepower to do all the data processing because they don't connect to a laptop. So they're very useful because you can travel, especially if you're a DJ and you're touring the world, you can just travel with a USB stick. And you can go to any club in the world, just walk in, plug your stick, and there's going to be a Pioneer setup set there for you, and you can start playing immediately. So it limits the amount of hardware. You don't bring a laptop, very, very easy. However, because there's no laptop, the computing power of these things is not as great, and so there's a lot of manual corrections involved, and so I consider them intermediate tools. When you get more advanced, you can start learning on these, but ultimately they are far less powerful than this. And the final step in your progression is probably vinyl. Obviously, vinyl removes all software. It's just an analog interface. And while I think that vinyls do have a place in the world today, and they are very hyped these days, I also believe that it would be not that beneficial for anyone to really start on vinyls. It can be very discouraging. I have many friends that started and just get too frustrated by the technical aspect of beat matching. There's a manual element to it where you really have to feel a record. I think it's beautiful, but it's also very difficult. And it creates barriers between your expression, your idea, your emotion, and sharing that with the audience. And so I would recommend that to be kept as a last step. So once you get what we're doing here today, and I promise you, it's really easy, you can then move on to more sophisticated tools if you choose to, but this is perfectly fine. There are world-class DJs that make millions and millions of dollars a year that today play with exactly the same tools that we're going to use today. Exactly the same. So it's nice to get access to the things that the best people in the world use for very, very cheap or almost for free. So that's kind of like how you break down, I think, what is the industry standard. Now, I think we can start with some concepts about, I want to say, the nature of sound, and what we're going to try to do here is try to understand why things sound the way they sound, and why should we focus on some things instead of others, and why do we always, how can we translate an idea that we have, an artistic idea that we have, into sounds that are pleasing, that fit into our journey. And the first step to do that is to talk about equalization. Now, I think most of you will be familiar with what equalization means, but for those of you that aren't, and it's totally fine. If you want to stop me, by the way, with any questions at any time, please do, and you get an applause because I'm sure everybody will have the same question as you. So the idea of equalization is basically the idea that when sound comes out of a speaker, there's many waves that come out of it. You can see them as waves if you want to look at sine and cosine. You can see them as expansion and contraction of air. It's pretty much the same thing. But the idea is that among this band of frequency that comes out of the speakers, you can simplistically separate three main categories of sound. There's the highs, there's the mids, and there's the lows. Now, intuitively, I think most of you again are familiar with the idea. A low is a it's a kick. A mid is somewhere in between, and there are some sounds that live in the mid, and we're going to listen to it a little bit. And the highs are the high pitch sound. Why this is important? It's important because it gives us a tool to assess what we're hearing. It gives us a tool to be our own sound engineers. When we are making music, we always want to make sure, and this is the first and most important thing, we always want to make sure that what we are hearing sounds the way we intended it to sound. And the best and most important way to do that is through equalization. So let's have here a quick example, so we can actually realize what we're talking about. So I'm just gonna, don't pay too much attention to this, but we can get into the more detailed part of the software later. For now, I'm just gonna load a song, and we're gonna start listening to equalization and start to think about, what does this mean, and where does this take us. So let's take a simple song that has okay, so what I'm going to look at is these three things here: high, mid, and low. There's three little knobs. I'm going to move them so you know which one they are. This is high. It goes from this is minus 100% to 0 to plus 100%. These are the high sounds. There's a mid, which goes again plus 100%. It's flat, it's 0, means that the sound that was intended in the song is coming out straight. And then it goes to minus 100. This is the low, again, plus 100, 0, minus 100. This thing over here is the volume channel. It goes up to 100, it goes down to 0. And the song that we're playing is playing on the left deck. I actually should probably give you a very, very quick introduction. So the idea is there's one song on the left and there's one song on the right. And this is the way that each song is going to mix well into what's being played for the audience, right? This is exactly the reason why DJs have a pair of headphones, right? The whole point of having headphones is that while everybody is listening to this, you're not listening to this for the most part. You're actually listening to this, the song that's coming up next. And you're checking it out, and you're like, wait, this song, would it work now? Yeah, this is also kind of funky. People seem to be digging this, so yeah, why not? Why not? This is part of my journey, perfect. So you scroll to the songs, you throw them on the other deck, and you're like, okay, this is good, I like this. So I'm gonna just throw another song here. Let's see that you like this one here, so you just drag it over there. Okay, I think this song over here will go well. So you have people, again, dancing and listening to this, but you're busy with this. You're always thinking about this. So this is just to give you some context into why we have two. One is for the audience, and one is for you to listen and prepare, so that you can mix it into the one that the audience is listening to. And then the game is going to switch. So once you make a transition, then eventually you'll be in a place where only this song is going to be played. At that point, you pause this one over here, you load another one, and again, the process continues. Okay, what should we play next? Should we play something a bit more punchy? The crowd seems to like it. Okay, let's go a bit up. You listen again to a few songs, and you realize what you want, and the game goes on. And that in 2 words is what we're trying to do here. So let's go back to equalization. As we're hearing the song over here, and this is a pretty full range song, meaning there's vocals, there's instruments, there's also kick, so it's a good example. So let's hear what equalization really means. We're going to start flat, and then we're going to take away the highs and bring them back. You got rid of most of the high pitch sounds, right? And boost it even more. should always trust your ears more than what you see. So you just listen to how a song sounds, and you should constantly be thinking about adjusting these knobs and making sure that the way it sounds is the way you intended it to sound. Now let's try to, so for the highs, mostly what lives in the highs is what we call snares. They're high clicking sounds. Some high-pitched instruments, a flute will probably live in the highs. An electric guitar will be probably in the highs, maybe a little bit in the mids. Now let's try with the mids. Some voices will live in the highs, some voices will live in the mids. It depends on the tone of the voice. A female high-pitched singing voice would be in the highs, a male flat would be in the mids. So this guy should probably be in the mids. So let's check it out. His voice is mostly in the mid, right? We almost got rid of his voice completely. But together with his voice, we also lost a lot of the sense of color of the song. And that's because, like all music, most of the decibels are actually in the mids. And so if you take away too much of the mids, the song is going to start sounding a bit empty. So always be careful not removing too many of the mids. And I think you guys can expect what happens when we take away the bass, the lows. So let's try that. There's no more. But the idea is, whereas highs and mids should be used as, you should treat them as tools for your own sound engineering, the low actually has a strong impact on the way you're doing music. And the reason for that is that most people will dance following the bass, right? And 90% of electronic music today is composed in what we call 4 to the floor, or 4/4s. Which means that everything that you hear is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is very, very helpful, and once we start mixing, you understand why. This is a beautiful, beautiful gift that lazy musicians over the years have given us, because this makes music incredibly easy to mix. If you were to mix a valser, you notice it's in thirds. Very difficult to mix a song in thirds with a song in fourths, because they're never going to be aligned except for every 12. So it's very complicated to mix genres that don't follow the same grid structure. But we're very lucky, because most electronic music, and a lot of pop music as well, is produced in 4 to the floor. So the importance of 4 to the floor is that it makes it very easy for you to dance anything, even if you don't know the song, you can just dance it. I mean, many of you probably will never heard this song, but instinctively, when you listen to it, even if you think about it, you're probably going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can feel it, you can dance it very, very easily. Now, when you take away the lows, you're throwing off people, because all of a sudden they don't have the reference. They used to be just following 1, 2, 3, 4, but then you just took away the thing that usually unconsciously they were following. And so it's a very interesting tool to make sure that you're signaling a transition, a change is very, very powerful. You're really dragging people a little bit away from the trance or the automated mode that some people feel when they're dancing. You just maybe having a conversation and you don't even notice, but your legs are moving this way, right? And then if the DJ all of a sudden removes the lows, your legs kind of don't know exactly where to go. And then the DJ can bring that back, and it's a change. It's a statement that you're making to either grab attention to a new part of the song or to drag people into it more, because people were not consciously thinking about their dancing, and then you took them away from them. Once you get back, people are more conscious about what they're doing. So let's hear that little example again. powerful things in DJing. I think they're very important, they're very effective, and you'll see a lot of really big DJs when they feel that the dance floor is a bit distant, when they feel people are talking to each other a little bit, you'll see them do this trick, and it really works. You just take away the bass, and people are like, what's going on? And then you get it back, and you're like, okay, here we are. It's so powerful that most songs already have that incorporated in the arrangement of the song, right? The songs themselves are produced usually with a build-up, and then a flat section in the middle where actually the composer takes away the bass. So there's usually a section in the middle that is pretty synthy, and then the bass comes back, and it's a moment of excitement, and it gives a lot of emotion, a lot of energy. And that really draws people, gives you an instant feedback, gives you a lot of emotion, it's very powerful. The fact that you can replicate that whenever you want, especially with repetitive music, is a very powerful tool. So, in general, I think equalization is something that we should always pay attention to. Equalization lives in those three little handles. Nina, can you give me some light for a second? Thank you. So I think the first thing you should do, always listen to the sound, think about what you're hearing. Do I like what I'm hearing? Is this the way that I would like to represent this song? Or should I change something? Should I give more mids because the voice is really pretty? Should I lower the highs because they're very loud and the speakers are shit and everybody's kind of like, ah! That happens very often. Normally I play like this because I can't afford good speakers. So we have pretty basic things, and the highs are usually the ones that damage your ears the most. So always be careful of highs. Low waves are long waves that you feel in your chest because they resonate with your chest. The wavelength of a kick is normally a meter long. So the wave that is being produced by that speaker starts there and it meets middle here and then it goes all the way here. And so in our bodies, the thing that better resonates with that kind of wave is actually our chest. A high-pitched sound, so if we only have the highs, the wavelength of the high is really tiny. It's a really tiny, maybe even 2 centimeters. So by the time it gets to me, it's already done a lot of, and that little wave wouldn't actually be enough to resonate in my chest. It's going to resonate in my ears. It's going to be much more powerful in my ears than in my chest. It's going to damage them. And so that's why normally we hear whistles when the sound is too high pitched. So always be careful about high sounds. The nature of these waves is also represented in the way that these speakers are built. Like all speakers, you can think of them as, this is a pretty small one, but normal speakers that you find in clubs actually have 3 different cones. There's a cone for the bass, there's a cone for the mid, and there's a cone for the high. And what you're doing when you are actually equalizing is effectively you're altering the power that each one of these 3 cones is receiving from the mixer. Right? So if I play like this with a 0% high, out of the 3 cones that are in this speaker, the high one will be flat silent. The mid one should normally punch still at its normal vibe, and the low one should still punch at the normal vibe. If you were to open a speaker like this, or probably a bigger one that has actually 3 tones, you would find out that the small one, the high one, is probably this big. It's really tiny, because you just need to make things oscillate on a very small wavelength. The mid could be like this, and the bass could be like this. The bigger the bass is, the more the waves are going to be big, and you can feel them in your chest. It's very powerful and very nice. That's why sometimes clubs use subwoofers, a completely separate array of speakers that are actually only designed for the bass because the bass is so big. And why the bass is big is because it has to move air to produce a wave that is 1 meter long that will make your chest vibrate. So you need a powerful wave. Also, the reason why when you are, try to remember the last time you went to a club, and even before getting in, you kind of heard the music being played inside, even if you're just walking in. Normally you hear only the bass. You know, imagine yourself, before you open a door and you enter in a room with music, what you hear is normally, and you open the door, and then you hear the full sound. The reason for that is that a long wave like the bass one is so long and so powerful that it travels, and it doesn't lose as much energy. It can travel much further because it's not oscillating so many times, right? So it replicates itself once, basically here from the speaker. So in this distance, it has only expressed itself once. But if I'm here and I'm listening to a high sound coming from this guy, that high sound has replicated itself 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then I'm hearing it, it has already lost a lot of its power. So high sounds don't travel as far, but they're very damaging to our ears because they can resonate our ears much more. So be careful with highs. So this was just to give you a little bit of sense. I hope it's not too complicated. It should be fairly easy, but this is just to give you a little bit of sense into what we're doing here. So we're controlling the lows with this guy, we're controlling the mids, and we're controlling the highs. Now, I know that there's a lot of stuff going on in this thing, but trust me, most of it we're never going to use. So that makes it everything much easier. I still wanted to give you full visibility into all the options that we have, because I think that's important. We're looking right now, and by the way, what this is a very basic Traktor S2 controller. You can find this on eBay for a couple of $100. That's all the money you need to spend to be a professional DJ today. That's free, or when you buy this, you can get it included. And what this is doing is essentially replicating what we see over here. Now, we could totally play without it. We could totally play just with the Traktor. With our mouse, we can control each one of these little levers, and that's what I do when I'm bored at work. I just kind of I don't have this, obviously, but I just play around with a few things and play with experiments. And I think that will be really interesting for those of you that are interested. You don't need to go out tomorrow and buy one of these guys, even though I think they're affordable and they're nice machines to have in your house. I actually think play around with the software itself, and you'll see how easy it is, how it does everything that you need. But basically, all that you see here, this is a spinning wheel, and what it does, as you can see on the left back, it goes back into the song. What we're looking at right now is the waveform of the song. So if I go back, you can even hear that I'm going back, right? Because the same goes for this guy. This is useful to move around the song, especially when this is playing for everybody and they're having a good time. In the meantime, you're here on your headphones. You want to go around the song and move a little bit, or skip a little bit, and then just like listen. And it's like, oh, do I like this? Is it a good song? Would it go well together? Yeah, probably. Okay, then I'm going to play. Now, 2 words on. Nina, thank you. So a few words on what we're looking at here. This is the song waveform. This is just a representation of. It's a visual representation of something that is not really visual, because unfortunately we can only hear sound, we cannot see it. So this is the best possible representation of what we're about to hear. The way this waveform works is it's trying its best to be informative. It's trying its best to give you an idea of what's going to happen in the song, and it does it really well. And I think I think eventually you'll almost get to a point, if you practice a little bit, where just by looking at this, you can already know what the song is going to sound like. You can already anticipate what's going to happen. You can prepare for sudden changes. You can prepare for a sudden drop in a kick, or you can prepare for a very high-pitched section, and it's really, really helpful. So, as an example, as you can see here, there's a big change. It's pretty flat before with some oscillations, and then all of a sudden there's these very rigid bars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I guess you can pretty much already predict what's going to happen here, given how rigid this pattern is. But let's hear it, and you'll have confirmation of what you thought. So let's go back a little bit. Make sure everything's flat. Volume. So we only have highs here. Helpful this is visually. Without even having headphones, without even listening to the thing, I know that this song is gonna have a kick starting about here. And that's really helpful, because I can scroll to the song, even visually, and just go to the section that interests me. And in the case that we were looking at, I may be interested in stopping actually here, so I can pause right here, and now I know that this song, at my command, is going to start on the first beat of this song. So really, really helpful visual to look at it.
What is the color?
Good question. So you can select the color to look the way you want. I have blue. You can have a base of red or green as well. The deeper the color is, the more the sound will be bassy, and the lighter the color is, the more it's going to be a high-pitched sound. So normally, all these flute and arpeggiated melodies that happened before are very light. If there was a voice coming in, you may see some middle of the pack kind of blue coming in. It would tell you that there's a voice, probably, or something like that. And then here, when it's dark blue, you know it's a bass sound. Another way to, so very good question. Also, you can pretty much tell that it's going to be a bass kick. You know, it's because it's very rigid. So as you can see, the software has a number of white lines. Those white lines are the hardest thing that this software is doing, and they are the thing that other pieces of software really can't do very well, including very expensive, like $4,000 DJs. These lines are very important because the software is reading the song, and it's assigning these lines to put the song from just a flat, a normal wave, series of waves, into a rigid grid of sounds that repeat themselves with a certain beats per minute, certain speed. So why is this important? Because then I know exactly when I drop a song into a deck over there, and let's drop one so you can see that happening. When I drop a song over there, oh, I played this one already. Maybe. No, I know. Okay, you see? Now it just assigned the line. So in these 5 seconds, what the software did is it read the song, it went in and looked for the first kick and said, okay, this is a kick. So this is the first one of the 4 to the floors that I will listen to. So let's start the grid lines here. And then basically the software will know exactly when each beat is repeating itself, and therefore it will understand that number over there, 100, which is the beat per minute, which is the speed of the song. So this is super important, right? This is the most important thing that the software does. Because once I know how fast this song goes, I can also change that speed, right? Because I have assigned grids to the song, so you can visualize the song, and then the software placed all these grid lines. So now I know exactly how to split this song into equal parts. Each one of the parts is one beat. And altogether, these beats in the original intended version of the song will play at 100 beats per minute. That's the speed of the song. Once the software does this for us, we can go in and actually change the speed of the song. And that's really nice because we can then make sure the 2 songs are going to be aligned. So this is the foundation of any mixing. So if we go back and play our song here, you can see that there's so this song is playing at 122 beats per minute, and there's a little grid, this little handle here, and what we can do is we can adjust that speed by the touch, and you can hear the difference. We can make it slower, and obviously we can make it much faster. And this is a really, really important feature of this piece of software. Now, you would think that if you play a song slower or faster, just like you would do with a cassette recorder, it would alter the tone of the song, right? Try to think about when you have a Walkman and you go backward, right? What's happening there? Because you're making things go much faster, you're altering the pitch. And so the pitch goes faster, goes higher. If you play something in slow motion, right? If you have a video in slow motion, normally it's like a guy falling down and why? Because we're making things go slower, and when things go slower, they tend to move the pitch towards the bass. But this amazing software has a feature which is on by default, so you should never worry about it, but you should know it exists, which is this little note. The note means that when I make things faster or slower, the pitch is magically, by some mystery, going to stay perfectly unchanged. So I can move the song much faster, much slower, it's never going to change. If I turn that off, you can actually hear how bad it would be to live in a world without this, which, by the way, is the world that people that play violin live in. Because if you have a violin and you play faster, you don't have this digital correction, so it's going to sound completely altered in terms of pitch, which is something you have to account for. And now, let's hear the variation once again. Much faster, much slower, still sounds like the same. Now let's go back to the middle. This is how it's supposed to sound. I kill the magic note. Make it much faster. Go up. Now back down. Definitely very useful feature that is turned on by default when you open the software. It's going to be massively helpful, as you can feel free to change without altering the pitch of the song. Now, I think this is pretty much the introduction in terms of features. I think most of you might understand already what's going to happen now, but basically, if you think about it, the software already is doing a lot for us. It's taking a song, it's assigning all these grid lines. Between two grid lines, there's always going to be one beat, so you hear pum, 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 pum. And you can actually look at it, and there's going to be a delay because of the projector, but you can still probably hear it. Yeah, there's a bit of a delay with the projector. Normally when you play, and your laptop is just talking to the controller and then the speakers, you can actually hear a beat that pops every time you see each white bar pop between the middle. So it's really helpful because it gets you in the groove, because you're just looking at this, and you know exactly what's going to happen every time a white bar passes through the red line in the middle. So very helpful also visually. But now, the idea is, as we were saying before, people are listening to this, they're dancing, they're having a really good time, just like, oh, it's a great song, amazing. You maybe take away the bass a little bit and they give it back so they come even more in. But in the meantime, what we're doing is we're not dancing, we're not looking at that, we're actually looking at the next song. And this song is going to run out eventually. We will know with this timer here. So this is very smartly displayed. It tells you the total song length, which is 7 minutes, 14 seconds. And it tells you with a countdown how much time you have before the song is going to end. And another really helpful thing that the software does, because the software knows that we are imperfect humans and we forgot stuff, is as you approach the end of the song, it's going to enter emergency mode. As you can see, it's flashing red. Like, dude, it's going to finish, and what's going to happen? Like, people are not going to die, they're going to leave the dance floor. It's terrible. So when you see this, you should completely panic and think, okay, what do I have here? So what do we have here? Let's start by having a look at what we can be preparing here. And this freaks me out, so let's pause it for a second. And we can start looking at preparing a song together that could go well with the one that's playing outside. So one first thing that we can do is we're looking at the BPM here. So this song is 122. We may want to play it at 120, so which is a very common beat per minute. Some people say that 120 is also the frequency that your heart beats at when you're dancing. So 120 naturally feels like a great BPM for you to dance. I don't know if that's true, but it kind of makes sense to me, and I like the thought, so I'm going to tell you. Basically, our heartbeat normally at 60, 70 BPM. When you're dancing, you're moving, so you're doing things, so you're doubling pretty much your heartbeat. So your heartbeat is going to probably be around 120. That means that every time you step down, you have a heartbeat. So I'm going 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. If I'm dancing for 5 or 10 minutes, every time I step my foot down, that is in sync not only with the music, hopefully if I'm a decent dancer, not only with the music that's being played, but also with the beats of my heart. And this helps get into a certain flow that many people, including myself, find very enjoyable. So 120 is a good place, but it doesn't mean that you should limit yourself. There's a lot of people that do a lot of great stuff in this city at 90 or 85, which is very slow, but you will also dance it slower, and you will be more conservative about your energy. You don't need to exert yourself that much. And I think eventually your heart rate will gravitate towards that BPM. And so you may find the same kind of flow because you're dancing slower. and you're being more floating rather than raving. So I do believe that our bodies eventually, just like when you're running, I don't know if you went for a jog and you feel that when you're running, eventually your steps fit the music. I think we have an innate tendency to have our bodies in sync with the thing that we're focusing on, even if you don't think about it. I think the same happens with music, and so I think that's really, really helpful. That's why also people say you should listen to classical music when you're studying, because when you're studying, you're sitting down, your heartbeat is very low, probably around 60, and classical music is mostly at 60 anyway, or it's a lot of things, but it can be generalized in the 60 to 80 range. So again, you're in sync with what you're listening, and that makes everything work in sync, I think. So we have a song at 120 here. Let's put ourselves on the dance floor. We're kind of in the middle, everybody's dancing, having a good time. Now what we do is we have this indication of 120, so we can go in this section here of the software, which is just like an iTunes library. And in fact, I use iTunes to manage my songs, so this really is exactly the same as my iTunes. There's a navigation menu here. It's very intuitive, but basically, I don't know if you can see, but I'm under my iTunes, so I have all my playlists. So you just access it with your mouse. So we go over here. This is iTunes. I just selected all my library. I'm going to sort by import date so I can play some fresh tunes. And I am just going to start looking maybe at the BPM here. Now I'm very lazy, so I never manually input BPM into my songs, which is something that I should do. There are pieces of software that can do that for you, but Traktor, this software, prefers to analyze the song every time and assign the correct BPM. So we will find out what BPM the song is in any case once we drop it in. For now, let's look at something that we already have an indication for. Okay, maybe this. Intense. So you see, even looking at this, I'm just looking at the song again. I'm not even listening to it. This song starts with a lot of stuff going on, right? There's already a lot of deep blue. There's light blues with probably clicks and sounds. So even without listening to it, we know that this song is beginning with a lot of stuff going on. So it might be a bit complex to mix into for the purpose of this example, of course. So let's go and find something else that may start in a bit more gentle way. So we have here, and I totally should have prepared this, but I'm not. A bit better, seems more regular. There's also definitely a kick, but I think we can work with this. So let's just align this on the very first beat. So now what we have here is, as we said, there's a song being played here. Everybody's listening, everybody's having a good time. By now we know that this is a flat, is a high and maybe a little bit of mid section. There's going to be a drop. Like in most songs, you see, you can visualize this with the software already. You see what producers do all the time, and we have some producers in the room here, so they can confirm you. Okay, actually, I should just use the mouse. Look at this. You see, there's a central section here. This section will have no beat, right? This is a classic section in the song where there's going to be a slowdown in general in terms of the energy level. There's going to be maybe a vocal part or some synths, and then there's going to be a build-up. Then the drop is going to come again, and it's going to give you beat, and it's going to be an emotional roller coaster, very memorable. The DJ is going to be very happy that he played that song. The producer is going to be very happy because there's a lot of emotions. I think it's a bit risky to produce only stuff like that because it gets very formulaic, and you can almost predict what a song is going to do by now. The same happens here. You see there's a long section here with no bass. And the first bass point comes here. This is kind of bassy, dancey section. And there's a section here. It's a bit smaller than this one, but it's still a considerable section that doesn't have much going on. And then the bass is going to come again, and people are going to dance again. So what we were doing before with the low, taking it back and giving it back away, was essentially replicating what most songs already have in their own nature, which is sort of layering. Now, I think that this is innate in the way that most people produce electronic music today. You can easily think about electronic music. I mean, you can think about it in many, many ways. The way I think about it is, it's like a building. You have the foundation, which is the kick, and then you build on top by layering more and more sounds on top. And when I produce songs, it's very helpful for me to start with just a kick, 1, 2, 3, 4, boom, boom. And then you can add things on top of that. You can add a voice, you can add a melody, a synthesizer, a clap that chases the beat. But electronic music in general has this somewhat rigid structure. Everything follows the 4-to-the-floor kick. And so the easiest way to produce this is to layer it, then take back some layers, and then give them back again. So a normal song that a professional musician will produce will have anything between 15 and 30 different layers, and you can separate them. If you see what they use to produce, which is probably software called Ableton or Logic, you can visually see all these layers lined up one upon each other. And you can see that a song is essentially a number of layers that get activated at a certain time that build on top of each other. And therefore, if you think about it, because the songs are already produced in layers, it's very easy to take some away and then create drama by giving them back. What most people do is they do that by removing and giving back the bass, but you can do the same with every single layer in the song. Now, again, we have the song playing in for the dance floor. Everybody's happy, having a good time. Now, the question that comes is this: how do I move from this song to that song? This is the fundamental question. How can I make this transition ideally as smooth as possible? I think that should be always your goal when you begin practicing. Try to always make it as smooth and natural as possible, aiming for the two songs to melt into each other to the point where if you're not familiar with any of the two songs, then you don't really know when one started and when the other one started, right? And if you extend this to an entire music set, you can then have an hour or 2 hours of music where it all sounded like a single song. I believe this type of mixing is very important in the beginning because it teaches you the discipline of making it right, and you will want to be careful about what's happening and making sure that everything lives in harmony. But then you can evolve your taste in mixing and make it different. In general, I want to say the most interesting electronic music country in the world today is Germany. And in Germany, most of the more successful DJs will usually aim for this kind of mixing, even very late in their career, even when they are very famous and sophisticated. They will try, for the most part, to make the journey as unified as possible. They will try to make you melt into sound so that you never really know what is this song. It's amazing, but then is this another song? It almost feels like it was one piece of orchestra playing the whole thing beginning to the end. And I think it's beautiful. In America, things are different. And I think in America, the more popular style of DJing actually has the DJ making sure that when you're moving from song A to song B, people notice. People realize that there's a DJ playing, and then that DJ is doing something and not just pushing play, and that people love him because he's up there, and that there's a change and there's a new song, and you can notice the change of pace, the change of tempo. To me, that's just a different style. That's not how I play. That's not how most people I like play. I still think you can be really effective and successful at delivering a great journey if you are a little bit over the top in your transition and you're actually making sure people notice that a song is finished and another one is beginning without being arrogant. The problem is most people that play that way are very arrogant and they will do it and then they will raise their hands and be like, boom, and they drop something and everybody's like, whoa, amazing. They do it for ego, and I think you should never do art for ego. Art is for others and not for yourself, in my opinion, especially DJing, which is something that I think it's so beautiful because it's so easy to share with people that are dancing for you. They're producing art based on your art, which is insane. So you should always make sure that it's not about you as a person, it's about the art and the music that you're playing. So let's try to make this transition as smooth as possible. Let's try to make these two songs merge into one another. Now, in order to do that, there's another super useful function that this software has, and that this software does better than any other piece of software in the world, which is beat matching. Beat matching means once we analyze all the beat per beats here, there's our little two white bars that contain 1 BPM in between them. We have the same over there. So here you can also see the white bars. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to press this button called sync here. And I'm going to press it over here as well. And look, I'm going to change the tempo of this one a little bit. Let's make it a bit faster, 123. Now, I have a problem, because this song here is 123 BPM, and this one is 120. So what am I going to do? If I play them together, eventually they're going to be out of tempo. Like when you're listening to music in your car, and then there's the left arrow ticking, and you're annoyed because the left arrow is going, and it doesn't match the music, and it's really pissing you off. That's the same that's going to happen here. If you play them together with the sync button, they may be in sync for a little bit, but eventually one is faster, and it will go away. But the software is really helpful, because if I click the sync button, the two songs, you see what happened? This thing changed immediately and became gray. I can't move it anymore. I can't drag it. So now these two songs are both 123, 83. That means they will go at the same speed. And that's super, super important, because that means as long as I start them together, they will go at the same speed. And that means they will never be out of phase. And that will make everything much easier, because the two songs will merge into each other in a super easy way. Think about the two songs. As two trains, and every white bar here, every beat is a train station. So if you have two trains running in parallel tracks and they're stopping at the same stations, you want to make sure that they start at the same time, and then they can arrive at the first station, stop, go, second station, stop again, third station, stop again. They will be constantly in sync, and they will stop at each station at the same time. And that's exactly what's going to happen here. Once we play these two songs together, and they are beat matched by the software that does all the hard work, then we are completely guaranteed that the two songs are going to constantly be in sync forever, and we can worry about only the sounds, but not the speed, not the beats. They're going to be taken care of, which is really wonderful. Compare that to vinyl, where you have to manually adjust and listen. You're listening to the song that's being played out loud on the dance floor, but in your headphone you're listening to the one that you're preparing, and you're like, which one is faster? Is this one faster? Is that one faster? This one probably faster. Okay, I'm going to adjust the speed a little bit. Mixing with vinyl means that 50% of the time you spend mixing is actually going to be spent beat matching. It's going to actually be spent making sure that you're adjusting the engine of the train to make sure that the train goes exactly the same speed. It's very rewarding when you can do it. I do it sometimes. It's fun. It's a nice challenge. It's also very tactile. It's very fun to do, but it takes away a lot of time. And that time, can be spent choosing better music or making sure that the music you're playing sounds nice. So I think this is really, really a very powerful tool, and it's going to make our life much, much easier. So now we know that the two songs are going to be in sync. There's another button next to sync, which is called master, and the master basically is a button that says which one is the song that's going to dictate the pace, and which one is the song that's going to copy the pace. So if we play here now, because this one is playing and this one is not, obviously this one is going to be both sync and master, because it's the only song that's playing. So if I play this one as well, this one is just sync, but it's not the master. You can see it's just sync. I can switch this one to master. Now this one is the master, and this one is the slave. It just follows. So now I can adjust the tempo of this one, make it faster. I can make it a bit faster, and the other one, as you can see, will just follow. So I'm making this one 126, 127. Can you see here? The other song, the slave, is just following exactly what I tell it to do. So these two songs now are going to be perfectly aligned, perfectly in sync forever. There might be a 5% I think, of times where the software may have a few problems reading the songs. There are ways to correct for that manually, but I wouldn't worry on that too much, because for the purpose of your first few months in practicing, it's totally fine to just change song and play another song that doesn't have problems with the beat matching. But clearly you can see visually that these two songs have been read well by the software, because the white lines are aligned with the blue lines of the kick. And this is true for both of them. So now let's do a transition here. What's important? The most important thing when you do a transition is to make sure that you're paying attention to the musical space that you're creating. You remember before we talked about equalization? Now that session about equalization was about one song. What we're doing now is we're introducing and eventually overlapping two songs at the same time. So equalization becomes super important, because if you crowd the sound space too much, you may have competing sounds for the same range. So it's extra important to pay a lot of attention and make sure that the two songs, when they are being played simultaneously, they're not too messy, they're not too loud. So let's hear. So now we have, as you can see, our equalization for both songs, the highs, the high, the mid, and the low, the high, the mid, and the low. They're both flat, everything is flat. I'm gonna flat the volume also of each channel. So everything is basic and flat. Now, if I go in this section here, and I start playing music out loud, slow it down. If I raise the volume of the other song, they're the same speed, which is super important. It's awesome, but it's very crowded. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's too much stuff going on because we're playing both songs. You see, at 100% volume. So each one of them individually is perfectly fine, but together at full volume, it's a bit of a mess. Tell, at least they're on the same speed. So 90% of the problems have already been solved for us, which is awesome. Now, what can we do? The idea would be to make sure the two songs are essentially sounding like one. So that means that the highs coming from both songs should not, amount to too many high sounds. The mids coming from both songs shouldn't amount to too many crazy mids, and there should definitely not be two vocals at the same time talking on top of each other, for example. And the kicks are at the very least aligned and probably not building on top of each other because it's going to sound very basic. So one simple way to do that is to wait for the beginning or the end of the song to make our transition, which is what we want to do normally anyway, right? Because we want to play a song from the beginning until the end. When we're going closer to the end, we want to start the new song. The new song is going to start. Now, most electronic music today is produced in a very DJ-friendly way. Producers want you guys to play their music in clubs. Why? Because that's advertisement for them. Because then everybody listens to their song in clubs, and they become famous, and they make a lot of money when they themselves are booked. So they will produce songs that will follow, again, I'm generalizing, but that's mostly true for most songs. Songs will always start with just a few elements, and as you progress towards 30 seconds, 1 minute, there's going to be more stuff happening on top. As you continue, 1 minute and a half, 2 minutes, there's already more and more layers. Maybe by 2 minutes and a half, you're reaching the point in the song where almost every single element of the song is present. Then there might be a song destruction in the middle, as we saw before, comes down, comes up again, and then towards the end, you start removing most of the elements, and the song actually feels quite empty towards the end as well. That's really, really helpful for us because that's going to make the transition very, very easy. So let's look if this is the case for these two songs. So this already seems simpler here. There might be, not so much actually. This song ends pretty abruptly. What about this guy over here? Yeah, this is better. There's a nice series of beats here, but we can tell that as we continue to go now here, you see this is still part of the song, but there's no more beat. So this is going to make it very easy for us to transition from one to the other. So let's play this one, and then I'm just going to show you what I would do in a transition, and you can see, and you probably can get what I'm doing already, but let's just have a look real quick. because we noticed that this song, all of a sudden lost, about here, it loses the kick, it loses the bass. We just replace this bass with the bass from this guy over here. So let's see it again. I'm gonna go back to the first beat here. I wanna be aligned on the first beat. The bass is playing here. Notice I'm in full volume on both. We can still enjoy the tail of this song with this long tricky synth. But in the meantime, there's another beat in town, and that's going to capture the attention of your audience. It's going to play and eventually pick up the pace. So they're both playing now. But this one is going to fade out, and now people are focused on this one. Now, obviously, this was a simplistic transition. Nevertheless, it really works because we managed to have both sounds together at the same time. Now, this was a bit abrupt, and ideally, you would want to take more time between one song and the other to actually slowly creep up one and slowly bring down the other. But then, how can we do it? Because remember, we were listening at both songs together at the same time, and they're really loud. There's chas on the highs from both. The beat is also looping. It gets a bit busy. What we're going to do is we're going to equalize the songs to make them into one. So we're going to take away stuff that we don't like from one song, or that is messy from one song, that is fighting for space. We're going to take away some other things from the other song that is messy, that is taking space, and until we come with a solution that we think is actually a good mix between the two. And that way we can make sure that even if they are both at full volume, they are not fighting with each other too much. To do that and to show you with time, because normally you are responsible for the clock, right? Songs play at a certain speed and you can't just pause like I'm doing here. It's easy. Songs are playing, you don't want to stop them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to loop a section of this song. And looping just means repeating a section infinitely. That's super helpful because it gives us more time to think about what's going to happen. Looping is a really, really powerful concept that most DJs use a lot. I want to say most people that play use looping in at least 1 out of 4 of their transitions. You may plan to loop, you may need to loop, or you may find yourself in an emergency with the red flashing, and then you have to loop because you need that last beat to continue indefinitely while you loop for another song because you forgot, because you were talking to people. So looping is very easy. There's a button on the controller, but we can also use it here. Now, because we said that music, electronic music is based on 4 to the floor, obviously we want to loop in base 4, right? So the idea would be to loop 4 bars that would repeat each other, because we know that if we constantly repeat these same 4 bars, they're going to sound fine. Now, some melodic elements of a song may not exactly repeat themselves in 4. They may repeat themselves in 8s. That's the most frequent. They may repeat themselves in 16. What's certain is that most bass is going to repeat itself every 4. So let's start by looping 4 bars. And you're going to see that they become green. Because they're green, now that's going to continue to play forever. Only in that loop, so it's going to go back. It's so easy. It just repeats itself. Now, the bass always repeats itself every 4, or most times, which is great. But there are some other elements of the melody that may repeat themselves in 8. So let's stretch it to 8 bars. Great. You could play this for 5 minutes and people would not notice that. It's very, very useful, right? Because now we have all the time in the world. Now we can just focus on this and listen to it and think, what are we going to do with it? And it gives us a lot of time, a lot of freedom. Obviously, you can loop more and more of this. You can loop 8, 16, 32. You can loop a lot. You can loop also very little, and you can repeat very tiny sections of a song. But that tends to get a bit difficult because it gets a bit intense. So I think when you loop 8, you're generally fine. Notice what I've done here. There are 8 bars here, and I chose the second 8. Why? Because this first bar still had some leftovers from the drop, so it would have repeated something that was not uniform. So always try to listen to your loops and make sure that you listen to the full loop repeating itself at least once, and check for consistency. Is it consistent, and could it be believed to be a song that goes on forever? I think in this case, yes. So now we have this loop playing here, and what we want to do is we want to make sure that we find another part of the other song that goes well with this loop, and we're going to equalize to make sure that they sound good together. So let's go and find that section. Actually, we can go from the beginning here. So I'm just going to move to the very first part. And again, I'm going to also loop 8 bars here. And what I'm also going to do is I'm also going to press play at the same time. 3, 4, 5. You get it? No, there's delay in the projection. Yes. Okay. Can you see? Now the two songs are looping 8 bars each, and they go back at the same time. So they are perfectly aligned. They will repeat themselves forever. This is already super helpful because not only I have infinite time to do whatever I want. Also, this is my insurance policy that the two songs are not going to go out of control. I may not know or remember the full song. Who knows? Like maybe in a minute, the song on the left, Mozam, may have a crazy voice coming in and ruining everything. So while I'm transitioning between one and the other, that song could completely change and do a lot of crazy things, and then all my planning goes to waste. So it's a very, very safe way to do it. It's the way I advise you start. Start with 2 loops, very, very easy. You have all the time in the world, and you can focus really on equalizing the sounds and making sure they sound nice. Now, once we know that we have these 2 loops playing, let's think again about equalization. I think when you think about mixing strategies and the ways that people can perform a transition, there's many. I think there's mostly 3 styles that you can transition from one song to the other. And we're going to start with the simplest one, which, by the way, everything I'm telling you is all in my mind. Nothing has been taught to me. So if you hear other people tell you these things, they may have a completely different view. The only thing that I can tell you is I've been doing it for 15 years, and I talk to a lot of big DJs about these things, and they tend to agree. But there's no one way to do anything. But I think the simplest way to transition between 2 songs is what I call bass switching. So you have a song that is playing on your deck here, on your deck B, that is playing and it's fully equalized, so it's flat, all the highs are playing, or the mids are playing, or the low are playing. What you can do is you can remove the bass from this one and replace it with the bass from that. That way, I'm only switching one part of the song with another, but the total sum of the equalization channel should still be pretty neutral. So let me set that up for you, and you're going to see what I mean. As you can see here, we have the highs, the mids, and the lows for the song on the left, Mozam. We have the highs, the mids, and the lows for the song on the right, Madame Apartment. So this song is playing out loud. So first I'm going to take away the bass from this. As you remember, people are lost, they don't know where to go dancing, so it's strange. You can do it very gradually, of course, and you don't need to remove all of it, but we remove a little bit. And now, even visually, let's remember, the result is to have an organic transition between 2 songs. So you can look at this as an addition. This plus this should still be flat. This plus this should still be kind of flat. This plus this should be flat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower this, so lower the highs, lower the mids, and keep the low. And now if you look at the 2 side by side, the end result, when both songs will be played at full volume, is going to be that most of the highs are going to come from this song here, most of the mids are going to come from this song here, and most of the lows are going to come from the new song. So the bass is going to be the next one. So this is a very good place to start practicing, because it's it's difficult to notice. So let's make a transition like that, and here it sounds. Sound pretty much like one song, right? This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to make the two into one. So this is great. Again, this is a third song that we're playing right now. It exists in between the two, but it allows us to play both at maximum volume without there being too much competition for sounds, right? The highs and the mids, so most of what we call the melody is coming from song on the right, but the kick is actually coming from song on the left. But because kicks are easy to switch, because kicks are usually bam, 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 1, 2, 3, 4, it's very easy to switch them. You can trade them, and it's very, very easy. So this is a very, very easy transition to make. As the transition progresses, now we live in a place where both songs can be played at full volume. And now we're going to gradually adjust by equalizing, so that we end up with 100% on the left and 0% on the right. And we're just going to do that by adjusting a little bit each knob, always remembering that what we want is an addition, high from song A and high from song B shouldn't be competing with each other. Mids from song A, mids from song B should not be competing with each other. And lows the same. So let's try and see how that works. Song A, but the transition was very smooth because we didn't crowd the sound space too much with sound from one or the other. That was really, really easy, and it makes the transition very smooth. People don't really notice, but now we moved from that to that. When we feel okay, we can actually exit the loop on this one, and we let that sound play, while we still maintain a little bit of this one, just to be gentle. That's it. Really, if you have to go, you can leave now, because you can play a very good DJ set just by doing this for an hour. And most people will have a really good time and will not notice how incompetent you really are. And that's because of how great the software is. This is a problem because then people can just start in 5 minutes and play, and that's why everybody's a DJ. But again, as we said in the beginning, that's beautiful, that's why art is democratic, and that's really, really great. And that gives an opportunity to everybody to express themselves. But with this very, very simple technique, just having 2 loops of the song, you know, to hedge against the risk, just by having 2 loops playing simultaneously, and by carefully switching the bass. Remember what we did? From one to the other. So if the songs were to play completely flat, it would sound like a mess. And instead what we did when this one was playing is we played this one fully. We took away the bass from here, and we make it the bass from this one, even like this. And this goes to nothing. That's it. That's really a very, very easy way to mix. It works with most songs, again, because most songs will have the kick that is switchable, tradable, and you can move it around. Now that's one way to mix, and although I think it is very, very easy, it's not the only way. Intuitively, I think most of you can imagine what the second way of mixing is. We're going to do the same treatment, but we're going to do it with the highs. So, you know, just like we switch the bass from one song to the other, we can try with some songs, not all of them. It's a bit more difficult, so I think it's an intermediate level of difficulty is when you actually switch the highs of a song with the highs of another, and then you can follow with everything else. But again, the idea would be you have everything is flat when the song on the right is playing, and you may want to reduce the highs a little bit here, keep the highs in the new one, and get rid of this stuff here, and then enter with only the highs from new song, and then eventually switch them over. Let's try and do that with the same song just to see how it works. I'm not sure it's going to work just as well, because this song begins with quite a kick, but let's figure it out. So again, I'm going to loop. I'm going to wait for that one to arrive. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Let's check that they are in sync. Yes, they are. So as you can see, now we have this guy over here is flat and it's playing out loud for everybody. And we're preparing that one, but we only want the highs from that song over there. So let's try and hear how that sounds. It's a bit more difficult. It may work. Let's see. By filtering it only for the highs in the song on the left, we basically just brought up the maracas. Because if you hear it alone, it's just a maraca sound. Because we killed everything else. And I can live with this. This is enough for the song on the left to be introduced into the composition. If we were to release everything else, a lot more sound, let's keep it easy. We just have the maraca sound. So while this is playing, bring up the maracas. transition. We have both sound at full volume. You can still make it. Right? It makes it a bit more dynamic when you're still taking away, bringing back things. It also, I think, confounds the water a little bit, so you never really know if you took away stuff from some on the left, from the right. It helps to merge them together into a single thing. So, I don't know that this was the perfect choice of songs to show you this transition, but I think it worked pretty fine, and you can see the philosophy is more important than what we're doing. I think practice will make it perfect, but the idea behind it is that the two simplest ways to transition between the two songs is to limit yourself in a new song to very few selected sounds, and then you introduce these sounds into the song that's playing out loud for everybody. So everybody's dancing on a thing. You select an element from a new song that you like. You isolate, could be the kick, could be the maracas, the highs, could be even the voice. Very easy. If you have a song that begins with a vocal, you can just take the vocal. And then there's a voice that comes in, the transition, and you just open with that. And if the song that's playing loud doesn't have a vocal, that's a great way to transition, right? That would fall probably under the category of highs. But basically, what you always want to do is you want to isolate the musical elements from the song that's about to play, that you want to play next, and then introduce these elements in the composition as slowly as possible in order for the two to merge together, and then you just start taking away things from the one that's ending. You slightly do it, take away a little bit, and the song will do it by itself. As we said before, electronic music goes up, for you, goes up and then goes down. So in the beginning, it will build up things, and towards the end, it will take these things away. So the song that we play out loud for the people will eventually lose most of its elements naturally, which is why you don't always need to loop, because the song will lose a lot of things along the way by itself. So it's actually going to help you to remove itself away. But you always want to think about it and isolate, okay, what do I want from song A to what do I want to enter with? What is the sound that I want to isolate? How is this going to sound in composition with the song that's playing out loud? How is this going to make me help me make it go up? There's a third way of mixing, which is it doesn't have much to do with equalizing, although you need to equalize a lot for that as well, because you always should be equalizing. And that is what I call melodic transitioning, melodic mixing, and that means that you have a song that has a certain melody that you like, and what you want to do is you want to think about that melody and think about another song that also has a melody you like, and then you think, would these two melodies go well together? Would they be harmonic to each other? Would they actually work with each other? And could they play these two melodies to each other together to create a new melody that builds between the two? Obviously, it's more complicated. So that's the most difficult way of transitioning. It has the great advantage that it doesn't require a 4 to the floor. It doesn't require a constant high sound. And therefore, you can mix any genre when you're mixing melodies. Because what we're doing here is we're cheating a little bit. We're playing only electronic repetitive music. That's very easy. By this, all that we just did is us adapting to the structure, the way that these songs are built. But there are people that want to mix R&B, hip hop, they want to mix, funky, they want to mix other genres that may not follow a rigid 4 to the floor, right? So what bass am I going to switch? If I want to play a funky, vibey kind of song, that there might not be a bass to begin with in most of the song, or if there is, it might be completely broken and non-linear. What do I do? And then you can start thinking about melodies and how these two would work with each other. So I'm going to give you a small example of a mix that is based on melody, but it's going to still be cheating because they're both electronic music songs. So they're still going to be pretty much in sync, but you can kind of see what I mean. Okay, so now, even if you look at these two songs, it would be so easy to switch the bass. There's literally only a kick. This is just dooms, 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 because there's not much. There's a little snare here. The white thing is probably a chuck chaser that is super, super, super basic. And this one even simpler. This is, you can tell by looking at this. This is literally just like this. So it will be super easy to switch these two songs. But we don't want to do that. We want to try to make something a bit more creative. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch the melody. And the way we're going to do that is by looking, at this song on the left. In the meantime, I'm going to prepare the loop on the right. So can you tell that there's something happening about right here? There's something going on. I know this song very well. This is a synth that's coming in, so it's thumpy, and then there's a synth. So let's listen actually to it so we can know what we're working with. As expected. Still pretty simple. It's a pretty beautiful thing that Orson Welles uses here. So we can go to the beginning of this synth, which is here. I'm going to loop it either 8 or 16. I think 8 is going to work already. Let's listen to it. This is a melodic pattern. This is a synth. It's going to probably live mostly in the mids, right? Because we, just by talking about it, we imagine that this is going to be easiest in the mids. So let's equalize it and hear how it sounds. Whoops. It's mostly there. So this is a melody that we have here. And if we were to find a nice melody that happened in the other song over there, we could actually create a third song by adding the melody. So this is just an instrument, and throwing it on top of that song over there. And I've done this already, so I know that there is a part here that sounds really nice. It goes well, so let's listen. I'm just going to skip a bit. Songs have a similar palette of sounds, which is very helpful for melodic mixing because it just makes things feel not too out of place. If we go to the, as always, you can tell by the structure, electronic music artists are very predictable. There's a section here that will not have any bass. There's two sections here, one here, and one kind of here that doesn't have much, and then there's a long tail. So let's go to this part here. It will not have any kick. There's just this little piano. And I think it's going to go very well with the melody that we prepared already. And so what we can do is we just let this song play and slowly introduce that other melodic element until the two melodies will live together. Again, we're doing a lot of equalizing, but the point is not to simplify the space. The point is to actually have a third melody come out of the two songs. So let's hear it. here in that break, and then we still let the song play because we don't want to end it too soon. It's too beautiful of a song to kill it at 5 minutes, 4 minutes. So we're just going to continue to let it play for people, and we're going to do the same in the second break. You can tell there's a second break point here. We're going to again bring this guy out and keep playing with the two melodies until people may think that it's actually part of the song to have this extra synth over here layered into that. And as this section becomes cleaner and cleaner, this will become more and more prevalent, and then we can move completely to this guy over here. Having the two melodies play to each other and switch. Now the problem with the way that I did this mix is that eventually we were here, there's a huge moment of like explosion, and normally what we've done is just like, you still let that song play its course, and you do one more time everything that we just did here in the end of the song, eventually fading into this one. And I think it's very powerful to think about melody as something that you can manipulate. It's difficult, but if you can find two songs that are harmonic to each other, which is the case in this case, two songs are clearly in harmony, the two melodies are in harmony with each other, and they actually complement each other quite well. So I think that's a really powerful way to consider as an option. I'd like to show you an example of somebody that does that way, way better than me, but I don't know how to plug in. Nina, do you have a cable from mini aux to the speaker? To plug like the iPhone or mini aux into the speaker? Thank you. So the melody mixing will be the third kind of way to transition between one song and the other. Ultimately, it's up to you to decide. It's always safer to switch the bass between one and the other. It's going to be a bit more difficult to switch the high from one another. But in the end, what matters really is listening to things and listening to how they sound together. And you know, if you can throw loops and things, it's gonna mostly work out for you because the software does so much work already for you that, you know, just looking at these things, this is obviously a very bass-heavy song. Let's just have a look here. This song ends without even looking. By now, you should be able to imagine. Okay, I'm just gonna take away the high and the mid. I'm gonna boost the lows a little bit. And then I'm gonna take away the lows from this one, and they're gonna work. Like we know already they're gonna work. Let's hear this. And again, just I randomly selected a song that was here. Let's see how it sounds. Very aggressively. That's what it was referring to as maybe more American style mixing. It's fun, it's energizing. You really grab the crowd. If you have the crowd craving for a beat, grab them like this. Emergency loop. Save us. If you are like this, you can tell that something should happen. It's difficult to dance, there's no beat. And so what you can do is you can just throw a bass in. That's a way to get noticed. It's also very energizing because all of a sudden there's something happening, something strong. So I think it's really fun to do it. But be cautious of the fact that it's going to be very obvious that you're moving from one song to the other. I think it's dangerous to play like that in the beginning because you're not going to pay too much attention to the equalization. And you're not going to listen as much because you're kind of like taking your chances by throwing a beat at 100%. So my suggestion will be always start slowly, slow, isolate the sound that you like and bring it in. And try to see how the two work together and always try to make a third song that is going to be your song. It's going to sound much better than A or B because it's a combination of the two with elements that you yourself found. Now, I spoke for a long time, and I'm sure there's a lot of questions. So, who's going to have the first question? And we can continue talking about things. I would like to slow down for a second. Do you guys get a sense of what it is? It's easy, huh? It's so easy. You all can go in a club tonight